Hi there, Chris again. Today's video is all about synths. In the recent years, we've seen a big comeback in 80s culture, ranging from gaming, TV shows and fashion. And so, this inspired us to create. We're going to be speaking to one of our composers who will give you some insights and tips on how to write the typical 80s style music using synths. So we're here with Tom, our composer on the album Analogue Synths. Today you're going to be recording a synth track for this tutorial. So just run us through the basic things that you're going to do.
So I'm going to make sort of atmospheric bass-driven track, quite moody, with a nice pulsy bass, with the chords up top, and then probably the Behringer Model D doing a lead sound. If we're going to build it layer by layer, I'm thinking a good place to start is probably with the Juno. This is the Juno 6. It's from 1982. It's an incredibly vintage retro sound, like right from the start. Within reason, you can take any element of that sound and carve it out to fit the function that you're sort of envisioning for it. Sound-wise, we turn on one of the oscillators and the filter's the full way up, so it's a very, extremely buzzy sound. It's got the full harmonic content, so instantly I'm thinking we need to pull down the filter at least somewhere close to halfway. Next important thing I think is the envelope. So you've got attack, decay, sustain, release. I want a sound that has quite a slow attack, so it fades in quite gradually, and also that it doesn't come to an abrupt stop. So I'm going to push both of these up, the attack and the release, and I'm hoping, kind of getting there. I want a bit more release. That's nice. All of this is great, but it's quite simple. You kind of get these sounds with a lot of other synths, but this element here, the chorus, is really the sound of the synth. So this is without. Quite nice, but quite, one-dimensional in a sense. But then you put this on, and what it does is it creates a stereo version. I mean, it's worlds apart, and it's instantly 80s, Hugely influential sound, and especially at the minute, you hear it everywhere. One thing that's very characteristic of, I guess, the 80s in general, it's not just a standard triad chord. Obviously that sounds very 80s because of the sound we're using, but you add all these, these second scale degrees, or these quite like chords with lots of close intervals, so I'm thinking something like that. I'm going to go for the triangle wave oscillator and the sub below it.
I suppose production music, it has to be usable. So we've got to figure out ways to make it flow but not evolve too much.
No, that's the thing. So hopefully we're going to find a lot of subtle movement within this sound that will, give you a feeling of like motion and development without any huge shifts.
So we've got the pads.
Yeah, good starting point. Now I am going to think about bassline. This synth here, it's called the Moog Minitor. It's very simplistic synth made pretty much for writing bass lines. It's very good at what it does. I've routed this MIDI keyboard here, which runs into the Mac. It then runs out via Logic to the synth. So I'll just set a little 8-bar loop. Just something like this. So we get a really precise driving rhythmic bass line that's kind of right on the nose every single time. So I think about that for a kind of filter. At key points in the track, you can bring it up a bit. Now, so what I've got here is it's just, as you can see, very simplistic. Follows the chords, hugs them, and it's just providing this steady pulse. I'm just going to take that simple pattern, I'm going to loop it a few times, and I'm going to record it back into Logic, coming out of the synthesizer. Feeling good about these two elements. It's a, it's a solid start, and decided to use a couple of soft synths to give interest to the Juno pad that we've already got. So the Juno pad on its own now sounds like this. And what I've done is I've gone into Diva, which is essentially an emulation of many, many different synths. And I've gone through a load of presets, and I feel like this particular pad is doing something that I like, so that sounds like this on its own. And I'll bring in the Juno with it. So what it essentially adds like the high frequency kind of buzzy sparkle. And then finally I've just added this little one. So it's sort of a chorusy, choral sound. What I've done is I've gone into region automation here. So in the middle of the bar, the chord would be at its loudest point, and then after that it would start to dive back down, and this would happen over every bar, so that's what this sounds like. So fairly subtle, but it does add some movement. So now all this together sounds like this. Wicked. So now I think I want to add a bit of lead. So I think for that I'm going to go to the Behringer Model D, which is the emulation of the Minimoog synth. It's perfect for almost everything actually. There's a reason that synth is as famous as it is, because it kind of does it all. Here we go.
It's important to know that you don't need to have these synths. There's plenty of software synths available that can do basic functionality and sound. Because it's hardware, obviously you get the feel of it when you're playing with it, and it's just feels more natural to be playing a synth instead of programming it.
I feel good about that lead line. That's really kind of tying that part of the track together, and it wants something filling in the 16ths. Some kind of arpeggiator rhythms that fade in and out throughout the track to give it movement and development. I'm going to use MIDI, and I'm going to just pull up a software synth and just have a bit of play around with different patterns. I've gone into the Repro synth, which is an emulation of the Prophet 5. This is a synth from 1978, and it's very of its time sound-wise. Refine that now in MIDI, and I'm gonna put it into an 8-bar loop and just gonna see how we go with that. Here we go. Great, so that's usually how I'd approach writing a synth track. Start with the key elements, so bass line, chord progression, and a nice lead.
Sounds great. Well, thanks for your time, really appreciate it. And these are the techniques we used in our album Analogue Synths. We hope you've learned something today, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.